Earth's brutal response. First contact, gone wrong. The ambassador's ship descended through Earth's atmosphere like a silver needle piercing blue silk. Zeth-Kalar adjusted his ceremonial robes one final time as the craft's sensors painted a picture of the world below. Cities sprawled across continents, connected by networks of light that pulsed with the rhythm of civilization. This was humanity's home, and according to the Galactic Council's intelligence, they had only recently discovered faster-than-light communication. Perfect timing for integration into the galactic community. Zeth-Kalar had performed this ceremony dozens of times across the galaxy. The script was always the same. Arrive with overwhelming technological superiority, demonstrate the futility of resistance, present the terms of submission, and collect the new species for processing into the galactic workforce. Most civilizations took one look at his dreadnought and immediately surrendered. The humans, however, had responded to his initial transmission with something unexpected: silence. His ship's communication officer, a nervous Krillian named Vex, approached his command throne. Ambassador, we're receiving multiple transmissions from the surface. They appear to be questions. Questions? Zeth-Kalar's mandibles clicked in confusion. What kind of questions? They want to know our intentions, our origin point, the size of our delegation, our quarantine protocols, and... Vex paused, consulting his datapad. Whether we require assistance with landing procedures. The ambassador's 4 eyes narrowed. In his 3 centuries of service, no species had ever asked if the Galactic Council needed help. They usually begged for mercy. Inform them that we represent the Galactic Council of Civilized Worlds, Zeth-Kalar commanded. Tell them to prepare for immediate governmental transition. Minutes passed. Then Vex returned, looking even more nervous. Ambassador, they've responded. And? They said, and I quote, "Thank you for the introduction. We look forward to learning more about your organization. However, we must respectfully decline your offer of governmental transition. Please coordinate with ground control for a peaceful landing if you wish to establish diplomatic relations." Zeth-Kalar's claws extended involuntarily. Decline? The word didn't exist in galactic diplomacy. Species didn't decline integration. They either submitted or were pacified. "Launch the demonstration," he ordered. The dreadnought's primary weapon charged, a massive plasma cannon capable of turning a city into glass. Standard protocol demanded destroying a major population center to establish dominance. Zeth-Kalar had selected New York. 7 million inhabitants should be sufficient to encourage compliance. The weapon fired. The brilliant lance of energy screamed toward the city, only to impact against a shimmering barrier that appeared moments before contact. The plasma dispersed harmlessly across what appeared to be a planetary defense shield of impossible sophistication. Alarms began wailing across the bridge. "Ambassador!" Vex shouted. "Energy signatures are spiking across the planet. I'm reading defensive installations coming online. Thousands of them." "Impossible," Zeth-Kalar snarled. "Our intelligence indicated they barely achieved interplanetary travel." "Sir, I'm detecting weapons locks from the surface. Multiple targeting beams are painting our hull." Before Zeth-Kalar could respond, a new transmission crackled through the ship's speakers. The voice was calm, professional, and terrifyingly controlled. "Unidentified vessel. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. You have committed an act of war against our planet by attempting to destroy one of our cities. You have exactly 60 seconds to surrender your vessel and prepare for boarding, or we will respond with proportional force." The ambassador's laugh was a harsh, chittering sound. "Proportional force? Vex, show them the power of a council dreadnought. Target their largest landmass." But as the weapons officer moved to comply, the ship shuddered, not from an external impact, from within. Emergency lighting bathed the bridge in red as system after system began failing. "Sir!" The weapons officer's voice cracked. "The humans! They're not targeting our hull. They're targeting our systems directly. Somehow they're penetrating our shields and disabling our equipment from the inside." "What?" Zethkalar spun toward the tactical display, watching in horror as his ship's capabilities vanished one by one. Weapons offline, engines at 30%, life support flickering. Another transmission arrived, this time with video. Admiral Chen appeared on the main screen, a human female with graying hair and steel-gray eyes. Behind her, Zethkalar could see what appeared to be a military command center bustling with activity. "Zethkalar of the Galactic Council," she said, somehow knowing his name. "Your vessel is now under our control. Our cyber warfare specialists have infiltrated your systems, and our defense platforms have you in a crossfire that you cannot escape. I'll ask once more. Will you surrender?" "How?" Zethkalar whispered. "Our technology is millennia ahead of yours." Admiral Chen's expression didn't change. "You made the same mistake every invader makes when they come to Earth. You assumed we were primitive because we hadn't achieved your specific technological milestones. You never asked what we had achieved instead." The tactical display showed the truth in horrifying detail. Earth wasn't defended by massive ships or energy weapons. Instead, thousands of small, nearly invisible satellites formed a web around the planet. Each one bristled with technology that Zethkalar couldn't identify, but their effects were unmistakable. His mighty dreadnought, pride of the Council fleet, was now little more than a very expensive paperweight. "Surrender," Admiral Chen repeated. "Now!" Zethkalar looked around his bridge, seeing fear in the eyes of his crew. They were Council military. They had conquered hundreds of worlds, but they had never faced anything like this. I surrender," he said, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. "Excellent. You'll be transported to our Cheyenne Mountain facility for debriefing. I'm sure you have a great deal to tell us about this Galactic Council of yours." As human transport ships approached his vessel, Zethkalar realized that he had made a critical error in judgment. He had assumed that humanity's recent discovery of FTL communication meant they were a young, naive species, ready for subjugation. He hadn't considered that any species capable of surviving on a death world like Earth for millions of years might have developed very different and very dangerous ways of thinking about conflict. The last thing he saw before the transport beam took him was Admiral Chen's face. She wasn't gloating or triumphant. She looked businesslike, efficient, and utterly ruthless. For the first time in his long life, Zethkalar understood what prey felt like. Hours later, in the depths of Cheyenne Mountain, Zethkalar found himself in an interrogation room that was both completely comfortable and utterly terrifying. The chair was perfectly adjusted for his physiology. The lighting was optimal for his species' vision. The temperature and humidity were exactly what his biology required, which meant the humans had studied him extensively before he'd even arrived. Admiral Chen sat across from him, flanked by a human male introduced as General Morrison and a woman identified as Dr. Elizabeth Reeves, xenobiologist. They had treated his crew with medical care and respect, which somehow made the situation even more unsettling. "Let's start with the basics," Admiral Chen said, placing a recording device on the table. "Tell us about the Galactic Council." I cannot. Disclosure protocols forbid." Dr. Reeves interrupted gently. "Zethkalar, we've already extracted your ship's database. We know about the Council's structure, its member species, its expansion protocols, and its location. We're simply giving you the opportunity to provide context." The alien ambassador's four eyes widened in shock. "Impossible. Our data systems are quantum encrypted with hegemony-class encryption, yes," General Morrison said, consulting a tablet. "Impressive by galactic standards. Unfortunately for you, our AI systems find patterns in quantum noise that your species apparently can't detect." Admiral Chen leaned forward. Here's what we know, and please correct us if we're wrong. The Galactic Council controls approximately 47 star systems. It operates on a tributary model. Newly discovered species are given a choice between voluntary integration or forcible pacification. Integrated species provide resources and labor in exchange for protection and limited technological advancement. Zeth Kalar said nothing, but his silence was confirmation enough. The Council maintains its power through technological superiority and the threat of orbital bombardment, Dr. Reeves continued. Resistance is met with extinction-level force. You personally have overseen the integration of 12 species in the past century. Now, here's what I find interesting, Admiral Chen said, her voice growing colder. According to your own records, 6 of those species attempted to negotiate. They wanted to maintain their independence while establishing trade relationships. They were willing to share technology and resources freely. The Admiral pulled up a holographic display showing a list of species names, each with a red notation. Pacified. Population eliminated. You killed them anyway, she said simply. Not because they were a threat. Not because they refused to cooperate. Because the Council's doctrine requires complete submission, and anything less is treated as rebellion. Zethkalar finally found his voice. You don't understand the complexities of galactic civilization. Order must be maintained. Chaos spreads if species are allowed to develop independently. Stop. Admiral Chen's single word cut through his explanation like a blade. I've read the reports. We know what your order looks like. Slave labor, resource extraction, cultural extinction. You don't maintain civilization, you devour it. The room fell silent. When Admiral Chen spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried the weight of absolute certainty. You made 2 critical mistakes when you came here, Ambassador. First, you assumed that because we hadn't developed your specific technologies, we were primitive. Second, you assumed that because your approach has worked before, it would work on us. She stood, walking to a wall display that showed Earth from orbit. The planet looked peaceful, blue and white and beautiful. But Zethkalar now knew that appearance was deceptive. Humans have been fighting each other for our entire recorded history, Admiral Chen continued. We've developed warfare into an art form. We've created weapons that could sterilize our own planet 100 times over. We've learned to see through deception, to exploit weakness, and to turn our enemies' strengths against them. She turned back to face him. And now, Ambassador, we're going to turn all of that experience toward a new target. Your Galactic Council has made itself our enemy, and we take our enemies very, very seriously. General Morrison activated another display showing detailed schematics of Council ships, weapons, and defensive systems. This is what we've learned from your vessel in just 6 hours. Impressive engineering, but we've already identified 47 critical vulnerabilities. Dr. Reeves smiled, and for the first time, Zethkalar realized that human smiles could be predatory. We're particularly interested in your FTL communication network. Such a centralized system has remarkable efficiency and remarkable weaknesses. You're planning to attack the Council? Zethkalar asked, disbelief and terror warring in his voice. Earth's brutal response. The ultimatum delivered. 3 weeks after Ambassador Zethkalar's capture, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session aboard the massive space station that served as their seat of government. High Counselor Vrathmak, a towering insectoid being whose species had ruled the Council for over a millennium, stood before the assembled representatives of 47 civilizations. We have lost contact with Ambassador Zethkalar and his dreadnought, Vrathmak announced, his translated words echoing through the vast chamber. This primitive human species has somehow managed to destroy or capture our most advanced vessel. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the assembled delegates. The aquatic Merthai representative spoke first, her voice bubbling through her translation unit. "Hi, Counselor. Surely this must be an error." Our intelligence reports indicated the humans had barely achieved interplanetary travel. "Our intelligence was flawed," Vrathmak replied grimly. "We have detected no debris field, no energy signatures consistent with a destroyed dreadnought. The vessel simply vanished from our sensors." Counselor Threx of the reptilian Gorn hegemony leaned forward in his environmental suit. "Then we deploy the battle fleet. A single dreadnought can be overwhelmed by primitive cunning, but not an entire armada." "My thoughts exactly," Vrathmak said. "I propose we dispatch Battle Group 7, 12 dreadnoughts and support vessels. We will demonstrate to these humans the futility of resistance." The vote was unanimous, as council votes always were. Within hours, the largest military force the council had deployed in decades was underway, bound for the small blue planet that had dared to defy galactic order. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of Cheyenne Mountain, watching the approaching fleet on long-range sensors. Around her, the controlled chaos of military preparation buzzed with quiet efficiency. Officers coordinated with defense platforms, cyber warfare specialists prepared their most sophisticated intrusion protocols, and xenobiologists analyzed every scrap of data extracted from Zethkalar's ship. 12 dreadnoughts, reported Captain Rodriguez from the sensor station. ETA 6 hours. "Any communication attempts?" Admiral Chen asked. "None. They're maintaining complete communication silence." Dr. Elizabeth Reeves approached the Admiral carrying a data tablet. "Admiral, we've finished our analysis of the Council's command structure. I think you need to see this." The holographic display activated, showing a complex organizational chart of the Galactic Council. Different colored nodes represented various species, with connecting lines showing relationships of power and dependency. "The Council isn't actually a democratic body," Dr. Reeves explained. "It's a hierarchical empire with 3 apex species at the top. Every decision flows down from them, and every conquered species exists solely to feed resources back up." Admiral Chen studied the display. "Show me the resource flows." The chart transformed, revealing streams of data representing materials, energy, and labor flowing from conquered worlds to the core systems. The pattern was unmistakable. The Council was a massive extraction operation disguised as a governmental body. 47 civilizations, Admiral Chen murmured, all of them reduced to nothing more than mining and manufacturing operations. General Morrison joined them, his expression grim. "It gets worse. We've been analyzing their historical records. The Council has encountered over 200 species in their expansion. Only 47 remain." The implications hit Admiral Chen like a physical blow. "They didn't just conquer the others, they eliminated them entirely," Dr. Reeves confirmed. "Any species that couldn't be effectively enslaved was wiped out completely. No survivors, no refugees, no genetic samples preserved. Complete extinction." Admiral Chen felt something cold and hard crystallize in her chest. She had spent her career fighting human conflicts, had seen the worst of what her own species could do to each other. But this was something else entirely. Industrial genocide on a galactic scale. "Status report on our preparations?" she asked. Captain Rodriguez consulted his displays. "All defense platforms are online and synchronized. Cyber warfare teams are standing by. Operation Pandora's Box is ready for deployment." "And our guest?" "Ambassador Zethkalar remains in protective custody. He's been cooperative since we showed him the footage of what the Council did to the Kethalara homeworld." Admiral Chen nodded. The recordings from Zethkalar's ship had painted a clear picture of the Council's methods. The Kethalara had been a peaceful species of artists and philosophers. When they refused to convert their society into an industrial complex, the Council had systematically sterilized their planet, then strip-mined it for resources. 5 hours until contact," Captain Rodriguez announced. Admiral, they're moving in standard council formation, a spearhead designed to maximize their firepower while protecting their command vessel. Perfect, Admiral Chen said. That formation assumes they're facing conventional opposition. It also conveniently groups their leadership in one vulnerable position. She turned to address the command center. All stations, this is Admiral Chen. In 5 hours, we're going to face the largest military force in known galactic space. They come here believing we're a primitive species that got lucky once. They expect us to cower and surrender when faced with overwhelming firepower. The room had gone completely silent, every person focused on her words. They're wrong about our capabilities, but they're not wrong about being outgunned. 12 dreadnoughts represent more raw firepower than our entire civilization has ever possessed. We can't match them shot for shot. She paused, letting that reality sink in. So we're not going to fight them. We're going to do something much more effective. We're going to make them fight each other. 4.5 hours later, the Council battle group decelerated from FTL at the edge of Earth's solar system. Fleet Admiral Kessatar, a veteran of dozens of pacification campaigns, studied the sensor readings from his flagship's command deck. "I'm reading minimal defensive preparations," his tactical officer reported. "Some satellites in high orbit, a few small stations around their outer planets. Nothing that poses a credible threat to the fleet." "What about their planetary defenses?" Kessatar asked, remembering the intelligence about Ambassador Zeth Kalar's fate. "Energy signatures suggest a basic shield grid, Admiral. Powerful enough to stop light bombardment, but our concentrated firepower will overwhelm it within minutes." Kessatar's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. Whatever trick the humans had used to disable Zeth Kalar's ship, it wouldn't work against a full battle group. "Signal the fleet. We advance in formation. Begin the standard demonstration. Target their largest city." The 12 dreadnoughts moved toward Earth in perfect synchronization, their massive hulls gleaming in the light of Sol. It was an awe-inspiring sight, designed to crush the morale of any species that witnessed it. As they crossed the orbital path of Mars, Admiral Chen's voice crackled across the Council communication channels. "Fleet Admiral Kessatar, this is Admiral Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. You are approaching our territory with obvious hostile intent. Turn back now, or face the consequences." Kessatar's laugh was transmitted back on the same channel. "Admiral Chen, I am Fleet Admiral Kessatar of the Galactic Council Defense Force. You will surrender immediately, or your world will be reduced to ash. This is your only warning." "I see. In that case, let me give you some information that might interest you, Admiral. We've spent the last 3 weeks studying your ambassador's ship and records. We know about the Council's true nature. We know about the 200 species you've exterminated." Kessatar's amusement faded slightly. "Ancient history, Admiral. Irrelevant to your current situation. Perhaps. But here's what might be relevant. We also know about the secret resource allocations from conquered species. We know which Council members have been skimming from the tribute payments. We know about the private armies some of your member species have been building in violation of Council law." The Fleet Admiral's blood turned cold. How could these primitives possibly know about internal Council politics? "Most interesting of all," Admiral Chen continued, "we know about the planned coup against High Counselor Vrathmak, the one that Counselor Threx of the Gorn hegemony has been organizing for the past 5 years. Warning alarms began blaring across Kessatar's bridge as his communication officer frantically worked at his station. "Admiral, we're receiving priority transmissions from the Council, from multiple factions." "What?" Kessatar spun toward the communications display, watching in horror as message after message flooded in. Accusations, denials, counter-accusations, and increasingly frantic demands for explanations. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, voice tight with confusion. "I'm reading weapons locks from 3 of our own ships. The Gorn vessels are targeting the hegemony dreadnoughts." "This is impossible," Kessatar breathed. Then louder. "All ships, stand down. Maintain formation. But it was too late. The careful political balance that held the council together was crumbling in real time as secrets that should never have been revealed spilled across the communication channels. Species that had harbored resentments for centuries suddenly found ammunition against their oppressors. Admiral Chen's voice cut through the chaos. "Admiral Kessatar, you might want to check your internal communication logs. We've taken the liberty of distributing some interesting files throughout your fleet's computer networks." Kestar's intelligence officer looked up from his station, his face pale with shock. "Admiral, they've somehow uploaded terabytes of classified council data directly into our systems. Everything is here. Financial records, extermination orders, private communications between council members." "How?" Kessatar demanded. "The same way we did this," Admiral Chen replied. Suddenly, every screen in the fleet began displaying the same message. "By order of the United Earth Defense Force, all council vessels are now under our operational control. Please stand by." The fleet admiral watched in helpless rage as his ship's weapon systems activated without his command. But instead of targeting Earth, they turned toward each other. The careful formation that had protected them now became a death trap as 12 of the galaxy's most powerful warships found themselves in a perfect crossfire. "Admiral Chen," Kessatar said, his voice heavy with defeat. "How?" "The same mistake your ambassador made, Admiral. You assumed that because we hadn't developed your technologies, we were primitive. You never considered that we might have developed different technologies. Better technologies." The tactical display showed the horrible truth. The human satellites weren't weapons or shields. They were quantum processors linked in a massive distributed network. While the Council had focused on building bigger ships and stronger weapons, humanity had learned to wage war in cyberspace. "Every system in your fleet is now under our control," Admiral Chen continued. "Your weapons, your life support, your communication arrays, even your personal data terminals. We own you completely." "What are your terms?" Kessatar asked, the words tasting like defeat. "The same terms your council has offered to the entire Earth's brutal response. The Galactic Council's final hour." The emergency session of the Galactic Council had devolved into chaos. High Counselor Vrathmak stood at the center of the Great Chamber, his normally imposing presence diminished by the pandemonium surrounding him. Representatives from 47 civilizations shouted accusations at each other, while security forces struggled to maintain order. The cause of the uproar sat innocuously on every delegate's personal display. Terabytes of classified council data, delivered courtesy of Earth's cyber warfare capabilities. Financial records showing massive embezzlement. Communication logs revealing planned assassinations. Military reports documenting unnecessary genocides committed for personal gain rather than council policy. Counselor Threx of the Gorn hegemony slammed his armored fist against his delegation's table. "These accusations are fabricated, human deception designed to divide us." "Fabricated?" screeched Representative Clix of the Avian Sorth High. "These are your own words, Threx. Your own orders to eliminate my people's agricultural worlds." "Silence!" Vrathmak's voice boomed through the chamber's amplification system. "We face an existential threat, and you squabble like hatchlings." The chamber gradually quieted, though tension crackled in the air like an electrical storm. Vrathmak activated the main holographic display, showing the current tactical situation. "Battle Group 7 has gone silent," he announced. 12 of our finest dreadnoughts vanished just as Ambassador Zeth Kalar's vessel did. We must assume they have been neutralized. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the assembled delegates. Counselor Vex High of the crystalline Zeftar raised one of her geometric appendages. "High Counselor, perhaps it is time to consider that these humans pose a legitimate threat. One primitive world against the combined might of 47 civilizations," Threx snarled. "Impossible." "Is it?" Vex High's crystalline form shifted, reflecting the chamber's lights in complex patterns. They have demonstrated capabilities we do not understand. They have infiltrated our most secure systems. They have turned our own information against us. Vrathmak studied the tactical display, his compound eyes analyzing the sparse data they had on Earth's defenses. What do we actually know about their capabilities? Senior intelligence analyst Mordak, a pale creature whose species specialized in information gathering, consulted his data tablets. Very little, High Counselor. Our standard pre-contact surveillance detected a technologically developing species with basic space travel capabilities, no signs of advanced military technology. And yet they have somehow neutralized 13 of our most powerful ships without apparent effort. Vrathmak mused. What could we have missed? Before Mordak could respond, every display in the chamber activated simultaneously. The image that appeared was not transmitted through council systems. It simply materialized on every screen, despite the station's isolation protocols. Admiral Sarah Chen appeared before the assembled council, her expression calm and professional. Behind her, they could see what appeared to be a military command center bustling with activity. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," she began, her translated words carrying clearly through the chamber. "I am Admiral Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. I apologize for the intrusion, but given your history of refusing diplomatic communications, more direct methods seemed necessary." Vrathmak found his voice first. "How are you transmitting this signal?" "Our systems are isolated and encrypted." "High Counselor Vrathmak," Admiral Chen interrupted smoothly. "Your systems are indeed encrypted. Unfortunately for you, we've had 3 weeks to study Council technology using examples provided by Ambassador Zethkalar's vessel. Your encryption is quite sophisticated by galactic standards, but our quantum computing networks find patterns in what you consider random noise." The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. Counselor Threx rose from his seat, his reptilian form towering over the other delegates. "Impossible! Our quantum encryption has protected Council communications for millennia." Admiral Chen's expression didn't change. "Counselor Threx, your species developed their encryption protocols approximately 4,000 years ago. They've remained essentially unchanged since then, aside from increases in key length. You've been using the same mathematical foundations for so long that you've forgotten they have weaknesses." She gestured, and the display split to show technical diagrams that made several delegates gasp in recognition. "Entropy patterns in your quantum key generation follow predictable cycles. Once we identified the underlying mathematical relationships, breaking your encryption became a matter of computational power rather than theoretical breakthrough." Dr. Elizabeth Reeves appeared on the screen beside Admiral Chen. "We estimate that any civilization with sufficient quantum processing power could have compromised Council security decades ago. The fact that no one has done so suggests either a lack of computational sophistication among Council species or," she paused meaningfully, "a deliberate decision not to reveal the capability." The implication hung in the air like a poisonous cloud. If Earth could break Council encryption so easily, who else could do so? How many secrets had been compromised over the centuries? High Counselor Vrathmak leaned forward, his voice carefully controlled. "Admiral Chen, what are your demands?" "Demands?" Admiral Chen seemed genuinely surprised. "High Counselor, I'm not here to make demands. I'm here to offer you the same choice your council has offered every species it has encountered." The chamber fell silent. When Admiral Chen continued, her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. "Voluntary integration into our sphere of influence or forcible pacification. Those are your options, as I understand council policy." "You're insane," Threx spat. "You're one primitive world against an empire spanning dozens of systems." "Am I?" Admiral Chen gestured again, and the display changed to show a star map of council space. But this wasn't a standard council tactical projection. It showed something far more detailed. Every council world was marked with precise data: population, industrial capacity, defensive installations, fleet positions, resource flows, and most disturbingly, exploitable vulnerabilities. The level of detail was staggering, showing intelligence gathering that should have taken decades to accomplish. "This is what we've learned in 3 weeks," Admiral Chen said calmly. "Every council world, every installation, every ship currently in space. We know your defensive capabilities, your resource dependencies, your communication protocols, and your command structures." She highlighted several systems in red. "These are your primary industrial worlds, the ones that produce the weapons and ships that maintain council authority. These yellow markers indicate your agricultural worlds, which feed your core populations. The blue markers show your resource extraction operations." The implications were clear to every delegate in the chamber. Humanity had identified the critical nodes that kept their civilization functioning. "But here's what I find most interesting," Admiral Chen continued, highlighting a different set of markers. "These are the worlds where the local populations have been difficult to manage. Species that have requested greater autonomy, reduced tribute requirements, or simple recognition of their cultural rights." Counselor Vexhai's crystalline form began shifting through the spectrum, a sign of extreme agitation among her people. "You've been in communication with our tributary species?" Dr. Reeves answered for Admiral Chen. "Counselor, we've been in communication with many species over the past 3 weeks. It's remarkable how quickly word spreads when you offer people hope for freedom." The tactical display updated, showing communication links spreading across council space like a vast web. Dozens of worlds showed indicators of coordinated activity, not rebellion exactly, but organization. "You're coordinating an uprising," Vrathmak said, his voice heavy with the weight of inevitability. "I prefer to think of it as offering people a choice," Admiral Chen replied. "Something the Council has never done. We've shared our technological capabilities with anyone interested in independence. We've provided communication networks that your intelligence services can't monitor. We've offered defensive technologies to protect worlds that choose to leave the Council." General Morrison appeared on the screen alongside the two women. "The really interesting thing is how eagerly people embrace freedom when they realize it's actually possible. Your tributary species haven't been conquered, High Counselor. They've been imprisoned. And now they have the key to their cells." The chamber's displays updated again, showing real-time status reports from across council space. World after world was showing the same pattern: local governments declaring independence, council facilities being peacefully occupied, and tribute shipments being halted. "Impossible," Threx breathed. "They don't have the military capacity." "Military capacity is irrelevant when you control information flow," Admiral Chen interrupted. "Every order you issue, every troop movement you authorize, every fleet deployment you plan, we see it before your own commanders do. Your own communication networks have become our intelligence gathering system." She leaned forward slightly, her gray eyes holding the camera with uncomfortable intensity. "But that's not the worst part, Counselor Threx. The worst part is that we've given every species in council space access to the same information we have. They know about the genocide of 200 species. They know about the resource theft. They know about the planned elimination of any world that becomes inconvenient." The tactical display shifted once more, showing something that made every delegate in the chamber recoil in horror. It was a timeline, a projection showing the systematic elimination of council species based on resource requirements and population pressures. 47 worlds would become 20 within the next century, then 10, then 3. "This is your own planning document," Dr. Reeves said quietly. "Generated by your Strategic Development Committee and approved by the Inner Council. Every species in your empire now knows that their current usefulness is temporary." High Counselor Vrathmak stared at the projection in shock. The document was genuine. He had helped write it. But it was classified at the highest levels, known only to the 3 apex species that truly controlled council policy. How? He whispered. The same way we've done everything else, Admiral Chen said. We asked nicely first. She gestured to someone off-screen, and Ambassador Zethkalar appeared in the frame. The council diplomat looked shaken but unharmed. When he spoke, his words carried the weight of absolute defeat. High Counselor, they have everything. Every file, every communication, every secret the council has kept for the past millennium. They offered me a choice, cooperation or watching my own species added to the extinction list. The chamber erupted in chaos as delegates realized the full scope of the catastrophe. Not only had humanity compromised their security, they had turned one of the council's own ambassadors into a willing source of intelligence. Admiral Chen waited for the noise to subside before continuing. High Counselor Vrathmak, members of the Galactic Council, here is our offer. You have 24 hours to disband the Council and grant independence to all tributary species. Any world that wishes to maintain political ties with their former rulers may do so through voluntary agreement. Any species that chooses independence will be protected by Earth's defensive network. And if we refuse? Vrathmak asked, though he already knew the answer. Then we will implement the same solution your council has used for every species that refused integration, complete pacification. Admiral Chen's voice remained calm, professional, and utterly terrifying in its certainty. The difference is that we have the capability to enforce our will across your entire empire simultaneously. She stood, and the image began to fade. 24 hours, High Counselor. Choose wisely. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Counselor Threx was the first to speak, his voice shaking with rage and fear. We can't simply surrender to a single primitive world. Can't we? Vexhigh's crystalline form had shifted to deep red, indicating extreme stress. They've demonstrated complete superiority in information warfare. They've compromised our deepest secrets. They've coordinated an empire-wide uprising. What exactly do we have left to fight with? Representative Click spread her wings in a gesture of despair. My home world declared independence 3 hours ago. They're using human technology to jam our communication attempts. Our own people won't speak to us. High Counselor Vrathmak looked around the chamber, seeing defeat in the faces of delegates whose species had ruled the galaxy for centuries. In less than 4 weeks, a single world had dismantled an empire that had stood for millennia, and the most terrifying part was that they had done it without firing a shot. Contact Admiral Chen, he said quietly. Tell her we accept her terms. As chaos erupted around him one final time, Vrathmak reflected on the bitter irony of their situation. The Galactic Council had always prided itself on its technological superiority and military might. They had conquered worlds and eliminated species through overwhelming force, but they had never encountered an enemy that fought wars in dimensions they couldn't even comprehend. Humanity hadn't destroyed the Council through superior weapons or larger fleets. They had simply demonstrated that in an information age, knowledge was the ultimate weapon. And Earth, it seemed, had learned to weaponize knowledge in ways the galaxy had never imagined. The age of the Galactic Council was over. The age of humanity was about to begin. And throughout the galaxy, on 47 worlds that had lived under the shadow of tyranny for centuries, people looked up at the stars and felt something they had almost forgotten how to experience. Hope. Every species they've encountered. Unconditional surrender. Complete integration into our sphere of control, submission to our authority. The fleet admiral's mandibles clicked in confusion. But you're just one planet. You can't govern. Oh, Admiral. Admiral Chen's voice carried a note of cold amusement. Who said anything about governing? We're not interested in ruling your council. We're interested in ending it. The transmission cut to static, leaving 12 of the galaxy's most powerful warships floating helpless in space, their crews realizing that they were now prisoners of a species they had come to conquer. In the silence that followed, Fleet Admiral Kessatar understood that everything was about to change. The Galactic Council's reign of terror was over, but what would replace it was a mystery that terrified him more than any weapon. Humanity had won without firing a single shot, and they were clearly just getting started. Admiral Chen returned to her seat. Attack? No, Ambassador. We're planning to do something much worse. We're going to give your council exactly what they gave those 6 species who tried to negotiate. She leaned forward, her gray eyes holding his gaze with uncomfortable intensity. We're going to give them a choice.